Grains. You want to introduce Lynn on the
I'm floating beach.
Thanks. Yeah, I guess that's good. Maybe we're looking forward. Well,
Does it turn off after a time? Does the projector turn off after a time? Because it is open and this is up. Okay, that was my only.
yeah.
I'm all good to go though.
Lectern and
I was like, oh,
okay, I do want you up here.
I think so.
There's light.
I was just like, oh shoot. Does it turn off? Does it not? Is it one of those that times out?
We should get him rolling. Oh yeah, it's time.
I'm all good to go.
There you go.
I'm recording.
This good.
Yes, it's coming up.
Thanks.
Give it a couple seconds.
Hey, we're about to start the market outlook and integrity with Lynn, so Grant will get us started.
I think, but I respect.
All right, we're gonna get started. This is the breakout number 7, organic grain market and integrity. Lynn Clarkson. So let me introduce Lynn. Lynn Clarkson. We introduce Lynn. Lynn Clarkson is an organic farmer and CEO of Clarkson Grain Company. Is a merchandiser, not a broker. Clarkson Grain contracts with farmers that grow identically preserved, non-GMO and certified organic corns and soybeans varieties, which are conditions and supplies to food processors. Clarkson Grain also makes high quality organic lecithin from soy and sunflowers. It contracts crop production only in the U.S. and sells to clients in the Americas, Europe, and Asia. Some of its products require pesticide residue testing, an expensive but critical fraud warning tool. The company has become particularly sensitive to the way fraud plays out through the market and impacts prices sold to you, the farmers. Lynn Clarkson.
Good morning. Markets are driven by a balance between supply and demand. And you and I pretty much know what demand is doing, but we've got very little control over supply. And why is that? How many of you recognize this guy? Bernie Madoff. Classic fraud. What does he look like? He looks like a normal person, and most fraudsters do. I'm an organic farmer from Illinois. I started a grain company 48 years ago. We had the good luck to survive, adjust to changing circumstances of about 50 people and have a number of really good clients around the world. Now, who in this audience buys grain? I assume all the rest of you sell grain. Okay? How many of you are aware of anybody in our community that cheats? How many of you turned anybody in that cheats? There's an inhibition against turning cheaters in our culture. Well, my focus is this: intentional misrepresentation of conventional crops and organic. It happens every day. Why is that important? Because that's what rewards successful cheaters. Big time. It hurts legitimate buyers, legitimate everybody, right down to legitimate consumers. We're willing to pay us more for a product that matches their values. But they're often buying something that doesn't match their values. So, this is my puzzle, yours too. How do we reduce fraud and respect legitimate organic growers and consumers? There are some vulnerable links. So, The real challenge here is organic is not something we can test for. Not quite true, but it's pretty much true. So it depends on a process that's guaranteed by paper. So what happens here? The exceptions for testing. The residue testing for pesticides and processed chemical residue. How many people know any grain companies that test for pesticide residue? It's very unusual. I have to test for pesticide residue because one of my products goes into organic baby foods around the world. And there's nothing more sacred than baby food. So a few years ago, I'm trying to buy clean oil, clean organic oil in the United States. I could not find any. My rule of thumb is not to buy any raw materials from overseas. Everything's domestic. I had to make an exception and went outside the United States to Italy to find clean oil. Now, what do I mean clean oil? I found the residues in oil samples coming from New York, California, the Midwest. Had pesticides in it that are illegal in the United States. Had pesticide residues illegal everywhere in the world except India. And pesticides are just illegal everywhere. And it was enough that it would be grossly offensive to the trademarks behind baby food going around the world. One of the destinations for baby food, by the way, for product of the United States is China, because Chinese mothers don't trust Chinese regulations. Soybean story. 70% of the soybean substitutes, or soybeans that come to the United States, come as soybean meal. And if you started testing that, you will find lots of hexane residue. Almost no one checks for that, except a few very, very sensitive people. But that is another weak place in the link, is the processors who can significantly improve their profitability by blending off conventional meal with organic meal. How you look for it? Look for hexane. Farmer fraud. Typically, it's pretty simple, straightforward. Randy Constant. How many recognize that name? Okay, $200 billion of fraud, all domestic. In 1999, Randy Constant walked into my office, along with his agronomist. The agronomist was there for window dressing. Wanted to make Randy look better. Now, in your world of agriculture, whether you are cognizant of it or not, you've developed an agricultural bullshit culture. Everybody needs one. Randy was really slick. There was no question that he fumbled. He had perfect answers to every question he had. And that makes me back up, because most people I know don't have all the answers, kind of stumble around looking for the right way to do things. So, this was a poster boy. He started cheating in 1999. When did anybody else catch up to him? I think it was about 2015. By the lawsuits, he was delivering soybeans that had 30% GMO to a Nevada processor who said, "You're cheating. What's this 30% GMO stuff?" "Oh no, you had to have done it. It left my farm in good shape." I'll be darned. Randy won the lawsuit. That's about how much he contributed. And so what happened to him? Ultimately, he was convicted, sentenced, and committed suicide the day he was supposed to go to jail. Since then, you've seen a series of convictions of farmers doing very similar things. You've seen them out of Iowa, Minnesota. Today, nobody out of Ohio. So good for you. How do you get apprehended? We have this certification system, people supposedly looking over your shoulders. Did that tip anybody off? No. This had to be coming from a competitor or an offended employee who quit and tipped off a prosecutor. That's how these things are normally apprehended. SOE, strengthen organic enforcement. the OTA, number of farmer groups, and the USDA are very proud of this and are singing its praises on a daily basis. I'm pleased to see it. It hinges to traceability, spot inspections, mass balance. All those are good things, but I don't know that this is going to be a really satisfactory answer. Okay, you move over to handlers. These guys are more likely to be engaged in fraud than a farmer. Why is that? You guys have tap roots. Your reputation is right there. It's hard for a farmer to pick up and move. Some of these guys move, change countries, change towns, change location. They're not as interested in their reputation as you are. Classic. A bulk ship comes into stock in California, 700, 800,000 bushels of corn. When that ship started out, it started out in the Black Sea as conventional. It was owned by Archer Daniels. Many of you may not know that when a ship crosses the ocean, it may be sold 4 or 5 times. Someplace in the middle of the ocean, there was an immaculate reconception. And everything in the ship became organic. Now, Mr. Povey from Organic Farmers flagged this. He told me about it. It wasn't a secret. What happened? We knew fraudulent material was sitting at a dock. All of that material was sold as organic to poultry feeders. And it went to organic consumers in the form of meat and eggs. Really? Look for it, Midwest. Okay, I get a phone call one day from a farmer who had hired an employee who had worked for a grain company and we do the farm. And the farmer called me because his buyer hadn't been paying him. He was looking for some place where he could get legitimate contracts. But he put the employee on the phone and said, well, so-and-so's cheating. Why do you mean he's cheating? Well, every day we're blending conventional blue in with organic and calling it organic. Then what do you do? He said, they said, aren't we going to get in trouble for this? To which the owner of the company says, I'm the one misrepresented. You're not, you're in the clear. Not entirely true, but that's what he said. My next question to the young man was, are you willing to go for a district attorney and testify? No, don't want to do that. I have no idea whether this has stopped or it continues, but nobody's checking. And if you want to check on mass balance on somebody that's cleaning grain, how is a mass balance operator going to know whether I got 20% clean out or 5% clean out? Because depending on the crop, that's in kind of the range you see. I was at a conference sitting next to the buyer for a major feeder. And this buyer was having an emotional delight. He was in an orgasm of pleasure over having bought 1 million bushels of grain and corn for $6 a bushel, when the price should have been 10. After that, I had meetings with some of the senior managers for that company, which I like and respect. What are you guys doing? At your scale, you can't run a legitimate program out of your grain. And neither can I, with best intent. Answer, oh yeah, I know you're right. But we talk about it all the time. I said, you spent 40 years developing a reputation, you can lose it in one story in Wall Street. What are you gonna do? Well, we talk about it. Yeah, but what are you gonna do about it? Well, what can we do about it except continue? So you could start a transitional program. Tell people what you're doing. They would respect that. But no, if you want to keep this charade going. And it is so tempting because never has there been a penalty for doing that. Retailers. Just know that some retailers are not particularly detailed about the distinctions between organic carrots and conventional carrots. I don't know how anybody's going to catch these guys. So when people start organic programs, companies start organic program, typically the quality control people are in charge. And they really care that your suppliers are legitimate. But at some point, the program gets handed over to buy first. And the holy grail is the cheapest possible price. And where are they gonna find the cheapest possible price? It's gonna be a foreign supplier. So what could we do here? We can remove the paper unit. But once you get a certificate, any place along the chain that says it's organic, they will rely on that. So if you remove the paper unit, you would transfer a lot of responsibility to consumer product companies, retailers. They would object because, wow, it's responsibility. I think the consumer would like it, and I certainly would like it. Consequences pro. We have a more legitimate situation because they're responsible, they would be much more likely to buy domestic production than foreign. The negative consequences, many did just quit buying because they didn't want the risks. That's been the fear. And in organic, many of us who love organic, for the first 10 years, didn't want to talk about fraud. We didn't want to send a signal to consumers that it was happening. But it continues to happen in such volumes, I think we have to talk about it. We set up a program that really puts a target on our back and just invites foreign suppliers to cheat. Whoops. Now what do I do? There we go. Well, the front point's local, or the farmers possible, handlers more likely. But it happens within the U.S. jurisdiction. We have a judicial system of the Uniform Commercial Code. Very few countries in the world have a good Uniform Commercial Code. We do. Same way in every state except Louisiana. Louisiana's a little odd. They follow the Napoleonic Code. Okay, what do we have? Prosecutors, investigatory powers, subpoena powers, they can assess fines, put people in jail. Truth is an elusive concept. How would you and I prove that a cheater we knew was cheating was cheating? We don't have investigatory powers. We can't compel people to come for a subpoena. But these guys can. The situation here, which is what we see on a daily basis, organic fraud might be possible, but if you get caught, they're going to be a penalty. Okay, move your focus overseas. Foreign fraud points are the same. Farmer handlers. The first world, England, France, Germany, Denmark, Scandinavian countries, they have similar commercial codes. They also have judicial systems that are similar and punishments that are similar. Third world, what happens? No functioning commercial code, no judicial system that anybody would be proud of, no interest in enforcing U.S. organic rules. So, if you were sitting in Argentina and you were having a drink with one of your buddies, and you thought, how can I make $1 million this year? How can I cheat? But I'm not going to cheat any of my buddy Argentina. I'll cheat those gringos. And what's the worst penalty I have to do? I'm going to lose my organic certificate. Big deal. 6 months later, different corporate name, different identity, back in business. Did I go to jail? No. Did I pay any fine? No. Looks to me like a win-win-win. And that's exactly how people think about it. The folks that put together the organic program in the States, I know many of them, I like them, I respect them. They made the assumption that everybody's honest. They never plan on people cheating. And unfortunately, it happens all the time. Okay, let's take a look at our corn and soybean markets. Corn, 20% import. Not a huge percentage, but 20% is enough to shift the value. Push it down, push it up. There's a small but growing carryover, and you're seeing the penalty of that right now in the prices. Foreign sources in order of import. Turkey. Now, when you see Turkey, keep in mind there's a lot of transshipment going on. The stuff that says Turkey on it may have come from Ukraine, Romania, it may have come from one of the stands. Argentina, Canada, Romania. Okay. Lots of transshipments happen in Turkey, lots of transshipments happen in Canada. And if you really want to cheat the US system, Canada's not a bad place to start. Soy, whoa. You are the minority providers of soybeans to our own country. No real need for that, but 70% of organic soybeans used in the United States come from overseas. There is a growing carryover. Why? Well, first of all, it's cheaper for others to raise soybeans. Your value weight ratio is somewhat better for shipping. And you keep your own seed. You don't have to buy seed. So there's more interest in soybean than there is in corn. 70% comes in at the meal. Has a lot to do with other countries. Maybe not having a really well-developed feeding system, but they need vegetable oils for cooking and other reasons. So what they have in the surplus, if anybody's crushing a soybean in that country, is meal. Foreign sources rank. Up until a few years ago, used to be India, clear leader. That got shifted to Africa. And you see this little black mark right here? How many of you have ever visited Togo? I had to look it up. It is providing something like 40% of all the beans coming from Africa. If you look at the Canadian beans coming in here, which you can see, half of that comes from Africa. So half of everything leaving out because it's soybean is coming from Togo. Okay. Now, if you look here, what do we have for first world countries? You have Canada. You have Canada. The Canada's bringing a lot of stuff. Now, right now, there's soybeans coming from Ethiopia and Turkey, a place in bulk ships into Canada. It's being crushed in Canada, turned into meal and oil. What happens under the international trade rules? Change the source label. It now is marked as product of Canada. So it's now going to feeders up and down the East Coast of the United States. And even if those feeders wanted to be careful about where they're flying, they're reading something that says product of Canada. They think it's okay. Oh, I forgot. Argentina's down here on both sides. According. So let's take a look at Argentina. Now, I know Argentina pretty well because at one time, my company was raising a lot of organic blue corn and blue corn seed in Argentina. He gave us 2 chances in an annual year to be wrong instead of just 1. So we raised too much down here too. We have some farmers, a family, that owned a lot of land in Entre Rios province and had good connections in Córdoba. And they decided to eat beer or wine or something to form an alliance to cheat the system. One of the really tip-offs was, first of all, they're using domestic certifiers that were okayed by the United States. They never ran out of product. And in the first 10 or 15 years of organic, in my world, if somebody never ran out of product, you knew they were cheap. Because we were all starved. We all needed more than we could find. They did it. These guys worked US trade shows well. They hired bright people. They believed in the important element of sex appeal, making sales, and they made a lot of sales. And they kept their secrets pretty tight. Played hardball as needed. Now, I want to suggest to you this is a gentle game. Cheating. If you were an Argentine farmer and you knew it was cheating and turned them in, If they knew you turned them in, your entire family was in danger. So let's say I have a 10,000 acre farm. And I know damn well it's not organic, it's so you. But I want it certified organic. So you go to your certifier, take him out for lunch, just picture your daughter. You don't need to say anything else. This is hard law. This is the type of things drug guys do, prostitution guys do. There's nothing nice about this. And it was in their interest to do that. What happened a few years ago? Well, probably somebody in the United States was irritated enough to start talking about it with the USDA. And then the USDA made a few phone calls and engaged in what I thought was really a laudable, quiet enforcement action, where a number of senior National Organic Program officials in the United States took a trip to Argentina. Then they talked to people in the United States to find out with whom they should be speaking in Argentina. When United States people got the names, things like that, they were told by their informants, this can never go back to me or I'm dead. There were a number of certifiers that lost their right to certify. There were several farmers that lost their certifications. I don't know that there were any handlers. But did anyone pay a fine? Don't think so. Anyone go to jail? Don't think so. So what are you seeing here? You're seeing a policy and program in the United States that puts an incentive in front of people to cheat. But take a look at India. India is sort of government supported organic. A couple years ago, they had a debacle, which they should have had. And now they're going to get better. So I visited India at one time. I probably been to visit every soybean crush, whether organic or conventional, in India. I went to see the head of organic agriculture for the Indian government. He says, would you like a cup of tea? Sure. He says, you ever heard of the Green Revolution? Yeah. Bet there's some things you don't know about it. Absolutely. What is it you want to tell me? Thanks. Well, he says, when the Green Revolution came along, we knew that it depended on nitrogen and pesticides. And how are we going to get several hundred million farmers to adopt this? We decided to pay for nitrogen, 80% of the nitrogen. I can't remember the percentage of pesticides they were paying for. He said back in the 1960s, that didn't cost a lot. But now we're in the 2000s, and this is extraordinarily expensive. And we want out to. So how do you government get out of this? Let's encourage people to go organic. They won't be asking us to buy their nitrogen, their pesticides. So there's the Green Revolution. So they're not that enthusiastic about organic farming, but they're really enthusiastic about not using nitrogen pesticides. Also, this is a country that doesn't have a feed industry the way we have. They're going to have one at some time. It'll be fish, chicken, but they crush a lot of soybeans to get oil. Then they got the meal to get out. So what do you do with the meal? Well, they ended up dumping it at less than the cost of production. 11 U.S. crushers sued. They took a complaint to the International Trade Court, that is a U.S. jurisdiction court, and they convinced the court that yes, the Indians were cheating. They were dumping. They won. At about the same time, about the same time, the Europeans were complaining about their spices coming from India. They were supposed to be organic, having preservatives in it that definitely were organic. At the same time, cotton buyers who were buying cotton from India found out their cotton wasn't exactly organic. And then you had complaints from the United States, things like mine, finding pesticides in things we were buying, because the crushers in the United States are doing dual work. So with 70% coming in, They're not paying any attention to where it comes from. So the United States had given a gift to Prime Minister of India. One of our presidents was over there and looking for something to give away. It wouldn't cost him very much. He said, we like you so much, we'll let you appoint your own certifiers to US standards. Well, that didn't work very well. So a few years ago, we took back that special relationship. The penalty for dumping can run to 240% of the value of what came in. That's a disastrous tariff. And so the soybean crushers in India quit shipping. And the Indians were so offended by the Europeans and the US that they refused to allow US certifiers for a period of a year to come in and certify India. That pretty much shut India off. What happened? Soybean prices, for the lucky few of you here, went up to over $50 a bushel for about 2.5 months. Since then, they've done nothing but go down. Today, what's going on? US certifiers are required. They should be. So India's now, by the way, there's the gain reports produced by the Foreign Ag Service of the USDA are pretty good. There was one that came out on December 28th, 2023 about Indian agriculture focused on organics. So I would encourage you to take a look. The Indians have started 2 organic programs. One's a domestic program, which you and I probably wouldn't call organic. It's like organic light. Do this in your production, organic. That's supposed to be focused on the domestic market. And there's the export market where we're trying to be more serious. But my experience has been so bad, I can't say this got a lot of credibility with me yet. But they're trying to get back in the game. Now, the average farm size is micro. And we're dealing with hundreds of millions of micro farmers. You know how complex organic rules are. I would like to explain that to somebody that's illiterate. Not the meaning being illiterate, but it's a challenge. How do you convey? How do you communicate? And they've got to do it with hundreds of millions of farmers. And you may have noticed those farmers in the streets recently in India. They are a political force. The numbers in the hundreds of millions. So to some extent, people are paying attention. Does India have willingness to enforce our rules? I really doubt it. Okay, my suggestions here. Strengthening your organic enforcement, which is what's going on now in the United States. That's okay. I'm pleased to see it. But now I'm going to be politically incorrect here. Here's something I would like to see. I would deny access for countries not able or willing to enforce US rules. Our standards. I regard access to our sophisticated IP markets as a privilege, not as a right for anybody in the world. The distinction with commodities is you can test. You can't test your way to proving it. And that requires really close supervision and management that in much of the world is not possible. I like spot inspections. Every lane. Doing your job well shouldn't be a problem. No reason to be nervous if you're doing it well.
Unknown caller.
Only NOP approved. Now, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the FDA's Food Safety Modernization Act. Familiar with it? Okay. Under that act, my company is responsible for my entire supply chain. If there's a screw up in the system that I don't find, I'm responsible. Now that applies to Nestle, it applies to General Mills, it applies to grocery stores, it applies to everybody. I think it ought to apply to organic. You got an organic certificate, you should be responsible for your entire supply chain. If you're not, then I don't think you should have the protection of organic certificate. And I don't think your fraudulent product should just continue through the chain of commerce as we have permitted in the United States. There is no responsibility when you allow that to happen. I would also like to promote domestically produced products that can be grown in the United States. I want to see it grown here. Now, there are some things we can't get here. Coffee, teas, herbs, and other things, fine, do what we can, but we got to improve the control or we're going to destroy all the legitimate people behind it. So, what's happening in organic demand? It's growing about 4%. It used to be in double digits, but that was when we were pretty small. And we're at 60 billion overall. It's more difficult to grow. Well, 4% is pretty nice growth. Corn. Domestic production is expected to grow. I suspect, but don't know that you had unusually good corn yields last year. I was quite surprised with my own yields last year. I suspect you were too. Yeah. Well, we're expecting that to grow. Corn imports are expected to decline next year by about 30%, which is significant. And most of that decline might come from Romania and Argentina having problems. Overall, the supply is expected to grow. Soybeans. We're not expecting a big increase or noticeable increase in the United States. We are expecting imports to increase. But they're already at 70%, so how much running room they have? Overall supply is expected to decline with a decline in carryover, which would be good for those in this room. Price forecast. Here's what we're seeing for next year. 750 to 950. Last year, we were probably at the bottom 950, and at the top, we were probably 50, depending on what corn you were growing. Soy, what we're seeing is 16 to 24. The 24 is a special food grade bean. Yield isn't as good as many, but it's a 50 or 60 bushel acre bean. The difficulty when you're dealing with merchandisers and brokers, typically such companies want to put something in their inventory that's unsold. But in a declining market, they can look at disaster. When we put out our 2024 non-GMO soybean programs, they were totally spoken for within 2 weeks. We would like to go beyond that, but the current markets, we can't. So we buy for what we know that we can sell. Suggestions. Feed versus food markets. Typically, your food market will pay more, but it's pickier. I really don't want wheat coming in the plant. And we hold a problem for organic farm. We have a problem for any farm, but it's a problem. But your food companies generally pay a bit more. I pay variety specific. If you're engaged in a mix of varieties, providing to a tortilla maker or whatever, no two loads will be the same. And consistency is a significant part of everybody's definition of quality. So if I deliver 2 or 3 different hybrids of corn to a tortilla maker, he will, if he's paying attention, say, I have spent too much time adjusting my menu, my recipe. I'm changing my cook times. I'm not getting the same taste on Monday as I got on Friday. And what he wants is a Danny on Monday and Friday. So you get folks like me saying, we want you to grow a specific variety or a specific hybrid. I encourage you to find local buyers at 100 miles. 100 miles, pretty arbitrary, but to try to avoid fraud, my company tries to buy specifically from farmers. We don't want to buy from brokers. We want to buy directly from the farmers. We want those farmers to be farmers we know. And if freight is gonna be a reasonable expense. 100 miles seems to be about as far as we would like for you to pull something. Now. Rick, who's the very experimental organic farmer in Indiana? Rick Clark. Rick Clark, okay. Rick, I like, I respect. Rick wants to raise beans on his farm that are unique to his farm. He wants to develop his own variety to raise just on his farm, which I said, Rick, that's fine as long as your market is the same size as your farm. If your market is bigger than your farm, then I'm not gonna like it. As a buyer, I'm not gonna buy from you because your beans won't process the same as somebody else's beans. So I want everybody to be raising bean X, not Rick Clark 4. So I understand what he's doing, I admire it, but it causes a problem for me in the marketplace. This just goes back to this business of consistency. So, if you want to check on what's going on in the legitimacy behind the scenes, the Global Ag Info Network, FAS, I recommend. Argus, which is a publication in ag world, various worlds, bought Macaris. Macaris has done a pretty nice job of sorting out the supply-demand details and pricing details. There's a guy named Ryan Curry, who's a vice president, an economist, and I strongly recommend paying attention to what he says. Farm, John Bobby. John has made a couple failed efforts at retirement, so you can still get him on the phone. And he does a really nice job at trying to figure out what's going on behind the scenes. You got the Organic Farmers Association, Keith Mendenhall does a nice job with this. You got the Cornucopia Institute, Melody Burrell, executive director. I think she does an excellent job. Then you got Mark Castillo. Mark used to be the executive director of Cornucopia. Mark always entered a room with a sharp knife. That put off a lot of people. Melody does not have a sharp knife. She had good arguments. She articulates well, and I think she is making Cornucopia Group more influential than it used to be. And you got Ken Roseborough, who publishes the Organic Conventional Report and tries to give attention to these kind of issues. So there you have my perspective on this. The focus on fraud is critical to control the supply end of this equation that you and I have joined. So the biggest weakness is the way we set up our program internationally, because once we get outside our own jurisdiction, we can't control all these things. So thanks for your attention. If you got questions, I'll try to answer.
Question, we got a new farm bill coming up next year. What's gonna be in that different for organic that you're aware of?
I'm not aware of anything that I regard as persuasive improvement or an attack on you. NRCS has gotten tremendous funding within the funding stage of NRCS, and I don't know. I don't think the government is capable of spending all the money that has been positioned to supposed to go into conservation for their issues. So they're trying to contract with reasonable third parties to help them spend that money in good ways. But did you have any particular clauses or bill in mind?
We got an extra year now to influence Senator Stabenow and others to tweak things.
Yep.
What would you like to see tweaked?
Well, I would like to see the organic rules tightened. I'd like to see it address this gaping hole that says, go ahead and cheat me. I'd like to see that removed. Now that's a tough one. That'll run into a lot of opposition, but I don't see how you control your supply line without doing that. So I would like to see that done. And I'd be quite happy to have the same standards in organic that the FDA requires for food safety. So I would love to see that added. And Debbie's David Home might be a good place to do that, I don't know.
And when you talk about food safety, food quality, blockchain has been very helpful to tracking down E. coli, for example. That would be an electronic record keeping system, I think, that ought to be considered.
I agree with you. I also agree that, new technology with satellites can tell us what farms are really going organic and which ones are playing a game. Where you lose control of that when it goes inside a building. And you've got a handler dealing with both conventional and organic. If you lose some degree of control, you have some major control, but 10%, 20%, I don't think you're gonna know. But yeah, I agree with that. Yes, sir?
I guess my point is you guys as organic farmers, police, your organic neighbors, is what we're talking about. I want to share a story.
Please.
I am an organic inspector. I've been on a lot of you guys' farms, but when you got gray hair like I got old, and they suspect something, I'm the guy that sends out and snip it out. So, you all know how hard it is to grow soybeans, nice and clean. I got a report, but in Ohio, got a report that, this fellow was banding herbicide down the row of his soybeans, so he always had weeds in the middle, but you know, you can cultivate drunk if you don't have any weeds down there. It's not very hard to do, we all would love that. So anyway, I went to investigate, what was going on this farm. And, he made, you know, he was thinking harder than he needed to because he wasn't keeping track of his spray nozzles on his planter very well, and he had one plug. So if you all can imagine 250 acres soybeans with 5 perfectly clean rows, and the 6th row ragweed 10-foot tall over his whole operation. And I asked the fellow, I said, you know, I've seen a lot of crops in my day, but I've never seen 1 row of ragweeds and 5 perfectly clean. I don't understand. Could you tell me how you do that? He said, well, sometimes weeds just grow that way. So I said, yeah, like an analysis plug. So that's just one thing that you guys need to look for a little bit. I mean, it's hard to do, but we are usually tipped off, and your point is exactly right. It's organic farmers who are working hard to make sure they're doing it right. They got no patience for a neighbor's cheap. Second is a disgruntled hired man that you just fired and knows where the bodies are buried. And the third is a pissed off housewife that decides she's going to get to the old man. And those are the 3 things that usually get tipped off to the certifier, and then they send old guys like me out and see what's figured out. But if you see soybeans that your neighbor's got 1 row we need to that's how they did it.
I appreciate your mentioning the housewife. I will continue not to say anything about it. Yes, sir.
We got a few sunflower growers in here. I know you dabbled in sunflowers in the past,
We have.
and I don't know if you had any market insight on sunflowers or what the future.
I wish I did, but I don't. We tried to do a transition program using sunflowers as a way of stepping into organic production by offering pesticide-free birdseed, essentially sunflowers, that lack the really serious chemicals that end up killing lots of birds. And on almost every seed planted on a conventional farm anywhere in the Midwest, negative ones. And we found some market for it, but we didn't find enough to run it at scale. It's enough that a farm could possibly run one just for itself, but then you're in a different business. So I wish I had a nice answer for you, but I don't.
Well, the organic inspector back there, what happened when you found that? What happened to that farm? Anything?
He actually, I knew the certifier and I knew how stuff that we're at. And by the time that was done, he surrendered a certificate on the spot. And he got quite, I tell you what happened. Integrity kind of place. Okay, and I spent a day in the area talking to crop suppliers, people, so I found out 5 other things he was doing, spraying his feeding hogs, organic hogs, conventional point. We uncovered all kinds of things, and I was extremely shocked at how much information suppliers were willing to share. The last night, besides surrendering his education, at the time, this has been a while. Time it was $11,500 violation, and I think they got him for about $55 fines and a lifetime of it. So, but like I told you, I don't know, support the vegetable farm. I mean, you can't imply that it's organic. You want to spray? Spray. You're not gonna do it. So, but you know, that's what happened. And which is enough. Like you're saying, that's no deterrent, really. I figured them out, how many years you can do it.
But I don't want to encourage farmers buying at farmers. That just doesn't fit well in our culture. But if you see somebody that's using the situation, the certification center is not picking it up. And unless you say something, you're probably going to just encourage us to keep on going. Your story has reminded me of a situation which goes to the difficulty of communicating the rules of organic. I get a phone call from a foreign country, and the government owns a couple thousand acres, and they said, we think it's right for organic. And they said, well, what do we need to do? I said, well, you can't spray pesticides, you can't spray fertilizer. Well, come on down, check it out. I fly down to the country. I go out to the field, and a couple guys walking through the field with 5-gallon buckets. What's that guy doing? Oh, he's dumping nitrogen on the plants. What's the other guy doing? He's dumping pesticides on the plants. He wasn't spraying. It's my fault, lousy communication. But it goes to the difficulty, how do I communicate with the illiterate folk scattered around the world? Again, not defeating illiteracy, it's just a challenge to make these things stick. Anybody else think we can change the situation in some way to be an improvement? If so, speak up. I'm always looking for ideas. If not, thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. If there's any questions, if you have a little bit extra time, just go ahead and yell. If not, then lunch is our next event here at 12:15.